Number 10. Mesoamerican ball game. Aztecs, Mayans, and Inca. Oh my, the ball game of Mesoamerica. Today a version of this game still exists. It's called Ulama. Not Alama, Ulama. Trust me, look at the spelling, it's there. Ulama. Which had its share of modern adaptations and rules over time, so it's changed. It's still played amongst the indigenous peoples of Mesoamerica today though. The original game's rules aren't exactly clear. However, what is clear is the cultural impact of this favorite pastime. A flying rubber ball is the least of your worries, as we all know how bad those can hurt. Remember gym class? I know, those hurt. Well, if you know Mesoamerican civilizations, then you know how much they love sacrifice. They love it! So much so that it was tied to the sport. Losing a game? Well, that could very well cost you your life. I love the ball game just as much as the next beer drinking dad in the stands, but no one should lose their heart after losing a sporting event. If that were the case, the Toronto Maple Leafs, well, they just wouldn't be around, would they?
Number 9. Gladiatorial combat. Do you think this wasn't gonna be here? Of course you did, because you guys are smart. You know who else is smart? Whoever it was that stopped gladiatorial combat. Only 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 gladiatorial fights ended up with combatants actually dying. But the whole thing started as a substitute for human sacrifice at funerals, so yeah, death and fatal injury was pretty common. Guys and gals who were criminals, who were enslaved, or who wanted to test their combative prowess took part in a bunch of different combative games as gladiators that would have them meet the afterlife at the pointy end of a piece of metal. It wasn't just people who met their ends in the arena either. 9,000 animals were slain during a 100-day ceremony to mark the opening of the Colosseum, for example. Look, we have combat sports nowadays 110%, but you aren't expected to die in pretty much any of them.
Number 8. Fencing. I know this is a sport that we still do today, but think about it. You fighting with swords, sharp, pointy, pokey swords. Just waiting for a moment to pierce a private school trust fund athlete. It's a wealthy European sport. Not for a humble plaid-wearing Canadian. Surprisingly though, the most common injury is sprained ankles and foot injuries during practice. A lot of the sport is placement and footwork, so that makes sense. However, it's still a sword. And yes, bad things have happened, like in 1982 when Vladimir Smirnov during the World Championships had his foe's blade break and pierced his mask. And his eyes. And his brain. He didn't make it. The sports safety since has gotten much better, but still that makes me uneasy. I'm galled. Nice. Number 7. You can't come in. Tokugawa Iemitsu was the big bad shogun in power. And when you're the big bad shogun in power, you get to make big bad decisions. He ushered in the beginning of the Edo period, one that would see Japan prosper for a while, but it did eventually decline. Perhaps the worst part of this time was Japan's isolation. Japan basically locked itself in its bedroom and with a roar of prepubescent rage told the world not to come into my room. Tokugawa forbade any Japanese ships from leaving and anyone from entering. The penalty for disobeying such rule was death. Japan was nervous at the time as many European nations were beginning to colonize. And if they could rip apart a dynasty like China, surely they would be next. This isolation period lasted over 200 years, and while the world moved on, Japan kinda stayed frozen in time. Of course, like most laws, they get broken, and on the southern tips of Japan's coast, there was some important trading with the Dutch, but we won't tell anybody. Number 6. Manifest Destiny. Looking back on history, the United States and Japan are probably most recognized together as being combatants of that one war with that weird mustache guy, whatever it was called. And that war ending in the worst party favor ever, honestly. But that wasn't the first time these two nations met. It was a beautiful summer day in 1853 when just off the shores of Tokyo Bay some strange ships came into view. They were American ships with cannons, and they came bearing gifts to the Emperor. And a very real ultimatum that can be summed up as, "My friends, you have been closed for too long. Open for trade, or else be annihilated, then open for trade." After some time, the Japanese really didn't have a choice. They dissolved the 200-year order to be isolated. The Americans were looking for trade, but in truth, a large motivation for their forced opening of Japan was manifest destiny. God bless America. God bless them. Number 5. When in Rome. Having a large quantity of warships in your harbor with shiny new weapons and technology is bad for one's health. But worse than that, it puts you in a position to be colonized. And to be fair, there was a good chance of that happening. From multiple nations actually. So when given an ultimatum, it was time to make a decision, but perhaps this wasn't all bad. The Japanese actually came up with a rather good solution. What if we take all the new technology and run with it? Maybe it's time to colonize some places ourselves, thought a room full of people ready to overthrow the feudal government with modern technology. And that's exactly what they did. An event in Japanese history called the Meiji Restoration was just that. What's unholy about the whole thing is how fast they did it, restoring the imperial reign but at the same time making it a very modern one. Within a few years, it had become the most powerful superpower in Asia. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Number 4. The Last Samurai. Japan went from feudal kingdoms to an imperial powerhouse maybe too quickly. Samurai for the longest time were a part of Japanese nobility. Swords for hire that became so rich and powerful that they essentially became the government themselves. So when the Meiji Restoration came about, the use of knights for hire really wasn't necessary with an imperial army and government. Tensions rose as a samurai rebellion had broken out. The samurai of the old world with traditional weapons, some firearms, and the new and powerful imperial Japanese army with modern weapons and lots of soldiers. After Imperial Japanese victory, Japan would shortly begin its expansion and colonization of Asia, taking the stage as a major world player.
Number 3. A fisherman's joust. You know what seems like a fun time? Hopping in your favorite boat with your best buds, going into the Nile River and beating each other with oars and long pointy sticks. What makes the ancient Egyptian water jousting even more fun would be when it would get pretty bloody, and blood in the waters of the Nile means crocodiles and hippos, both of which will de-life you faster than you can say Tutankhamun. The game, like lots of other blood sports, was played out in front of comfortable, rich overlords who would laugh and cheer as you were torn limb from limb by angry water creatures. Romans actually had something somewhat similar, where they'd fill a coliseum with water and have naval battles against teams of captives who were sentenced to be de-lifed, and these were usually way more fatal than most other gladiatorial games.
Number 2. Rooster throwing. There was another name for this sport which immediately caught my attention because I thought it was something totally different, and it's not what I thought it was, sadly. Well, basically for this one, you get a rooster. You tie it to a pole and you throw things at it until dinner is ready, because it'll probably be ready for dinner since you've thrown so many things at it. I don't have to tell you how cruel that is. This was a group event too, because if you weren't with a group, it would be kinda weird. Imagine walking down a secluded alleyway and there's a dude with a chicken tied up to a pole and he's just hitting it like Mike Tyson hits a punching bag. You'd back up real slow and far away from that situation. Personally, I'd recommend bowling, a sport that makes you look like you commit crimes, but not actually doing them.
Number 1. Shin kicking. What the hell? Why? Why? Why was our idea of a fun old time to grab each other by the throat and ruthlessly kick each other in the shins until one of you hits the dirt? No, I don't like it. But then I find out they first did this heinous act of combative entertainment with steel-toed boots. They train by hitting themselves in the shins with hammers. Am I missing something about this? How is this fun? Please explain, someone. I feel like I'm getting mad at the fact this exists. You know what? It's even something that people still do. There's a damn World Shin Kicking Championship. Andrew, tag me out, man. I've had enough. I'm done. Come here. Thanks, pal.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Hermes. This quick little lad sure is light on his feet, but he's also got a few tricks up his little sleeve. He's not an innocent guy. He's known as the messenger because, you know, he's that fast and all. He's fast as boy. Hermes is the son of Zeus and Maya, and as far as parents go, that's not bad. That's pretty good. Pretty good cards dealt in that scenario. He was destined for greatness with his speed and agility. Poems and plays remember the mythical man as quick physically, but he was also quick with his decisions. He could change his mind in the blink of an eye. You can't keep up with him, really, in any sense. His agility allowed him to glide effortlessly between 3 realms, the 3 main worlds in mythological ancient Greece, those being heaven, the underworld, and the third, which is often forgotten, the sea. He was a messenger of the gods, but he was also a #prankster. Yeah, classic. When he was just an infant god, he hopped out of his crib and stole cattle. Scandalous gods in history? Yeah, Hermes stole somebody's cattle. TMZ would eat this speedster alive if it was today.
Number 9, Odin. In every story and every myth, book, movie, there has to be a big bad guy. And for Norse gods and mythology, that's Odin. It's Big Daddy, and he's here to cause some scandal. He was the king of the gods and a father to many more. We could probably make a whole list on him, but Taylor and I do have to go home at some point. Looking at his track record, it can leave you with mixed feelings. Not Taylor, I meant Odin. Taylor's a good guy. He's never been a criminal. Sorry, Taylor. He created this and that. He gave life to many, but he also took it away, unalived, imprisoned, and tormented, and a whole list of things that would have the YouTube gods upset. And let me tell you guys, those are some of the gods you really don't want to upset. You don't want them on your bad side.
Number 8, Aphrodite. The Greek goddess of love and beauty. Oh boy. Cover your eyes for this one, Big Ched. You don't want to see any of this. Yeah, this is dirty. This is dirty stuff. Hit that thumbs up for Aphrodite, the dirty one. Aphros translates to foam, and Hesiod's Theogony tells us that Aphrodite was born from the white foams of heaven. Nice. I was born in Ajax. At first, Aphrodite was worshipped as a goddess of the sea, but in Sparta, she was seen as the goddess of war. Yeah, the goddess had around 17 children with 7 different men. And by men, I mean Olympian gods. Yeah, I'm just grabbing coffee with my ex, Poseidon. Relax, Trevor, it's fine. We're just friends. Aphrodite was one of the 3 contestants in winning the Golden Apple. The Golden Apple was given to the most beautiful goddess at the time, and it was between her, Hera, and Athena. It was a tough one. Aphrodite promised the then Prince of Troy, Paris, that if she was chosen, she would give him Helen, the most beautiful woman in all of Greece. Yes, here's your new wife. How does that sound? Great. And then the Trojan War happened, so scandalous? Yeah, sorry.
Can I stop covering my eyes now, Taylor? I want to see now.
She's gone now.
She's gone? Okay, she's gone now. Whoa, that's better. Oh, don't want to see anything, too inappropriate.
Number 7, Chariot Races. What could be more dangerous than being pulled by 2 to 6 horses around a giant track with hairpin turns in a light, easily breakable 2-wheeled cart at breakneck speeds against about 10 or 12 other dudes doing the exact same thing? Not a lot, but that's probably why it was so insanely entertaining to watch. Chariot racing was a huge sport back in the day, not just in gladiatorial games either. This was actually part of the ancient Olympics. Guess where the best place to sit during a chariot race was? If you were there for the life-taking potential of the sport like everyone else was, you'd want to sit on the turns where you'd get a good view of the tangled masses of horses, drivers, wood, and death when they crashed into each other. But don't worry, chariot drivers also whipped each other and threw each other out of their chariots, so there was violence for all to see.
Number 6, Hoplitodromos. What's worse than running a marathon completely stark nude in the heat of the Mediterranean sun? Running a marathon in a full set of military gear in the hot Mediterranean sun. Oh yes, that's right. Shield included too. Man, that would really slow you down. And the baby powder I would need for the chafing. Oh, at least I'd smell good though. Anyways, this sport may have actually had ulterior reasons for making chiseled oiled Greek men run around in full armor. It suggested that it was just as much as a military training operation or preparation as much as it was an Olympic event. To be fair, it makes sense. A Greek soldier would have to be quick in order to get past Persian arrows. Fast enough to dodge those set arrows? Probably not, but the ancient Greeks are smart, so if they're doing something for a good reason, then I trust them. That makes sense. That makes sense, right? Yeah, sure.
Number 5, Nguni stick fighting. I remember when I was a kid, me and my brother would fight each other with sticks in the backyard. He hit me in the pinky one time so hard that my nail fell off. I think, as revenge, I'm going to learn the martial art of Nguni stick fighting and ask for a rematch. The Zulu people would essentially dual wield sticks or have a stick and a shield, and they would just go to town on one another. Now, honestly, this one ain't so bad. You ain't really seeing deaths here. The worst people get are massive scars that they wear as badges of honor. But when I flash back to the amount of damage I have sustained from ruthless stick-based attacks in my childhood, I'm gonna actively avoid that kind of situation going forward, I think.
Number 3, Shinigami. If you thought I was going to talk about Japanese Shinigamis and evil gods from the hit anime series, then you clearly don't know Chetty. I'll give you the facts first. Basically, they are evil gods, spirits from those who have passed on, except they're just down bad, dude. Their intentions are completely dishonorable. They like to possess the living and make them do heinous things. A lot of times, sadly, it's to unalive someone. Kind of like Peter Pan's shadow, but instead of harmless mischief, it's folks not waking up in the morning, if you know what I'm saying. And of course, where do I get my fix for Shinigamis? But from that one really popular anime about young people who really are emotional and being possessed by Shinigamis. Oh man, talk about scandal and drama. Huh.
Number 2, Loki. The god of mischief? Why, of course we had to sneak in this little devil. We've seen variations of Loki on film, really. Tom Hiddleston does a great job in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but just how accurate is he to the real god of mischief? Well, Loki in Old Norse translates to close, but you don't want this one anywhere near you. Loki was known to cheat those around him, so often that his mouth had to be stitched shut. I mentioned the underworld earlier when I was talking about Hermes the messenger. Well, Loki is the father of Hell, ruler of the land of the dead, the underworld. In our last collab, we mentioned why it's important to keep your pets on a leash and all. Well, Loki is the proud father of Fenrir, the massive wolf demon that historically was prophesized to eat Odin during Ragnarok. So, yeah, a little scandalous, I'd say.
Number 1, Kratos. The real Kratos, in some depictions, is the one who ordered poor Prometheus to be chained up, or does it himself, which is bad. That's not cool. Chaining a dude up so that a big bird can eat his insides is a little crazy. It's a little scandalous too, but I'm gonna throw in the Kratos that most of us know today. Okay, yeah, it's a bit of a stretch, I know, I hear you. I think a lot of you will agree with me that they took lame chains up Prometheus Kratos and turned him into the remorseful, bloodthirsty god with son issues. Kratos. He's got a decent story arc though, that's pretty cool though, right? Plus, you know, the games are a lot of fun. The Kratos we love and know had left the world of Greek gods and after pretty much destroying them all, made it to Norse land. That's right, crossing mythology. That's pretty scandalous. Taylor agrees. How much more scandalous can you get? That's like celebrities when they try to reinvent themselves. Sure, Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man, and he's great, but some folks from a few years ago might remember his past. You can't hide from that, Greek god or not. Number 10, cold as the wind blows. Japan, we love the people, the food, the culture, and the samurai, because let's be honest, armored gentlemen of high morals with really sharp swords is just cool. Kublai Khan, being not as cool as Japan, said to himself and his massive ever-growing army, we should go get some cool from Japan. And go to get cool they did. While some initial boat crossings and evasions went okay, to very notable instances where it did not go very well for the Mongol invaders. The worst incident being on August 12, 1281, with a combined fleet of 4,400 ships, over 140,000 Mongol warriors were ready to invade, when seemingly a large typhoon came out of nowhere and devastated the Mongol forces, with at least half of the men drowning and only a few hundred ships remained. Casualties were very high. Those that made it ashore were hunted down by the 40,000 samurai awaiting battle. Shortly after, the typhoon was dubbed the Divine Wind and was thought to be a gift from the gods. Holy for Japan, unholy for the Khan. Number 9. Ninja vanish. Samurai are distinguished by their colorful leather armor, and katanas that are forged with great care, and a code of honor that was upheld at all costs. But they were not the only warriors of ye olde times in Japan. The ninja needs no introduction, but here it goes anyway. Stealthy warriors cloaked in black who were hired for tactical espionage, and a really weird movie with turtles eating pizza with a rat. They were mercenaries hired by daimyos, and even samurai to get the misdeeds of war done. Sabotage and assassination were necessary in the rebellious and political climate Japan found itself in. It would see many political shifts and leaders fighting for control of a unified and fractured Japan. Number 8. My eyes! As previously mentioned, the ninja were stealthy warriors who did the dirty jobs no one else could. Specifically samurai, as the Bushido Code literally forbade them from it. And honestly, they were kind of high sniffing their own farts, as they felt a lot of things were below them, including ninjas. I for one would not want to disrespect such a worthy foe. What the ninja lack in a full military force or simply being in a traditional battle, they make up for it with their tactics and weapons. Equipped with a variety of weapons with a variety of uses, the most unholiest weapon in the ninja's arsenal was the Mitsubishi egg, not to be confused with Mitsubishi. A small container of sorts that held dirt and dust that when used would blind and disorientate the enemy. The worst flavor of this egg being filled with crushed glass. Yeah, crushed glass in the eye. It caused excruciating pain and would be quite difficult to deal with medically at the time. Honestly, who throws glass in eye? Number 7, Prometheus. O wise and mighty Prometheus, what knowledge do you bring us humble people today? Fire! Fire good. The god that gave us fire. Let's be real about this. We needed fire. It's a big one. The same way I need McDonald's in my life. I love the clown's hamburgers. Love you. Trouble is, for Prometheus, he was told by Zeus that we couldn't have fire. He was gatekeeping it. Toxic, right? I know. So Prometheus disobeyed him and gave it to us anyway. Imagine all the Slouvaki the Greeks made after that. Oh, yummy. Zeus being Zeus was pretty cheesed about the whole thing, so he sentenced poor Prometheus to an eternity of suffering. A large eagle would come by every day and just take a chunk out of him the same way liposuction makes celebrities look 20 again. It's one thing to disobey dad, but to disobey the king of kings? Buddy, you're gonna be grounded.
Number 6, Ares. So now that we know who Aphrodite is a little bit, this next one has some juice to it. Time to really spill this tea, this cosmic tea. When Aphrodite married Hephaestus, the god of fire, it sounds like a spicy romance at first, but it was really just an arranged one. You know, not much love to it, the classic. Well, truth be told, she really had her eyes the whole time on the god of war, Ares. I mean, to be fair, hard not to. He's the god of war, aka the spirit of battle. She was a big fan of warfare, you know, she wanted a bad boy, so Aphrodite was like, hey, we should have an affair with our counterparts over here. And Aphrodite and Ares hooked up in Hephaestus' bed. How rude is that? I mean, to be fair though, he's the god of fire. That's probably a nice bed. Definitely beats a water bed, that's for sure. Yeah, should we go to Poseidon's fishy bunk bed or this one?
Number 5, Baron Samedi. Okay, this one is a throwback to my gamer audience. Remember in GoldenEye, Nintendo 64, after beating the game, you got to unlock those 2 bonus levels? Remember the Egyptian level? And the dude that won't die no matter how much you sling his way? Don't forget the evil cackle too. He's always laughing, that guy, isn't he? Well, who is that? It always creeped me out. Well, besides being a cool Bond villain, it's actually a Haitian god or voodoo spirit. Baron Samedi. He's a spirit of mischief, death, up to no goodness, and has a fondness for rum and tobacco. That's kinda cool. He ain't all bad though. It's said that he can cure any disease or ailment of any mortal should he want to. Kinda like the anti-hero of the gods. Pretty cool. I just refuse to replay the level from GoldenEye. I'm scared, unless a big tall comedian who works on a history channel wants to hold my hand while I play.
Number 4, Eros. The son of chaos. I'd say that's a little scandalous, no? In Greek mythology, Eros was the god of love and or this guy has got it all. You may have heard about his Roman counterpart. She comes around every February with a bow and arrow and doinks you right in your butt. Makes us fall in love with our, friends, co-workers, I don't know. That's right, Cupid and Eros. They were a nice couple. Don't mind the plastic couch coverings. Come on in, take your shoes off, stay a while. We're a weird household. In early historical references, Eros is a primordial god, but more recently he's considered one of Ares and Aphrodite's children, part of the winged love gods. Yeah, the winged love gods, what a crew that is. Imagine them showing up on America's Best Dance Crew. The Jabberwockies would be so screwed. Just float in. Around 700 BC, ancient Greek source Hesiod's Theogony, I mentioned that earlier, he also mentioned Eros as the 4th god ever to exist. First there is chaos, and then the earth, Gaia, then Tartarus, the abyss, and then our boy, Eros. In 400 BC, however, Parmenides, another philosopher, says Eros was the 1st god. Either way, I'm excited to see Harry Styles play Marvel's version of Eros. When it comes to love and sex, I'd say they nailed the casting. I don't know, just saying. What? What's up?
Number 3, stomach pains. If you know anything about Japanese history, you knew this was coming. No, not the Logan Paul incident, but seppuku, the tradition of unaliving yourself with the most pain possible. Look, you gotta give samurai credit. They follow that Bushido code to the T. I mean, I can't even commit to a good book sometimes. But as crazy as the tradition sounds to us, to the samurai, honor means everything. Often done when defeated or disgraced, it's a ritual knife to the belly, and see you soon in the afterlife, oh mighty emperor. The most well-known case of this was the tale of the 47 Ronin, who after being disgraced and avenging their master, were granted seppuku by the shogun. The story has been told in many plays and even some films. Number 2, 'tis but a scratch, sir. Katanas are beautiful pieces of art in warfare. Just ask anyone at an anime convention, they'll tell you. But in all seriousness, a lot of time and effort goes into constructing a samurai blade. One might even say the blacksmith's soul gets put into every strike of his hammer. So when the blade is completed, you gotta test drive it. Make sure it's sharp. To test the sharpness of a samurai edge, you would use bamboo, animals, and the occasional criminal. This practice was called tameshigiri. That's right. They would test it on people. But I mean, what better way to know what your sword is gonna do than by knowing what it's going to do? Katanas could easily remove limbs from torsos. Records of these events have provided some knowledge of the human body's resistance to edge weapons. Thanks, samurai. And number 1, artsy brothels. Geisha women wore beautiful kimono robes and were oftentimes mistaken for being courtesans. While in some cases that is true about geishas, they were more like me. Wait, what? All jokes aside, they were more humble hosts for these pleasure quarters, oftentimes entertaining men before the scandalous behavior occurred. This was a time of great cultural and artistic expansion in Japan. So these pleasure houses were legal. A lot of these women, while not having the same amount of freedom and choice as today, actually did have more than their European counterparts. Nice.